I first met Aaron Patterson at, no, it was pre-Vivace. Somewhere, that pizza place in Seattle.
Red Line.
Red Line.
Want to do that thing?
That thing? Oh yeah, come on up. And at the Seattle RV, the Ruby group up there. And a couple years later, again, that like have amazing friends principle kicked in, and I decided I'm done with the freelance contracting world. I want to get into some sort of like salary full-time job. And he and John Barnett and Fish and Chips were working on making more people click on ads using the Fibonacci sequence, and they needed, me, so they called me in, and I got the job or whatever. So we battled through the trenches of online advertising together, and then later on the trenches of the Buzz.com together. I've had the good fortune of working with Aaron a few times, and Ron has something to say first.
That was a really great intro. Really great. But
You can do better.
I have something to say. This guy is a really unique figure in our community. He is the only person who actually has his own theme song. And so a few people didn't know what that was all about, so they thought, we'd like to know a little bit more about this Tenderlove character, so I'd like to perform for you an interpretation of a song, words by Josh Susser, music by Jim Werrick. Let me put on my costume. Join in if you know this one. Tenderlove, Ruby programming guy. Tenderlove, he's as awesome as wife. Seattle is his home. He's a Ruby brigadier, and he's the nicest guy that is here. Tenderlove called himself Japanese. Works on rails, makes it fast, because Errol needs ASTs. He's a hero dressed in pink. He's the man around town. He's the one you're thinking of. Ruby hero, Tenderlove. Ruby hero, Tenderlove. Come on, join in. Ruby hero, Tenderlove.
For those that don't know, Aaron's website is tenderlovemaking.com, and his handle everywhere is Tenderlove. That's why we call him Tenderlove.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm totally thrown off now. Okay. So I wanted to I'm titling this talk TMI with Tenderlove. And I want to thank Ron, I want to thank Shane for having me here today. I am very happy to be here. And the first thing I want to say is I want to talk a little bit about Evan and Shane. And so my fiance described to me the relationship between Evan and Shane, and I just have to repeat it. It's kind of strange. She has a strange sense of humor, but Evan is the tree, and Shane is the mushroom. They go together, and let me like, I'll tell you how they go together. I'm also an amateur mycologist, as somebody who studies mushrooms. And so it's kind of interesting. She is Japanese, and the word for mushroom in Japanese is kinoko, which literally translated means child of tree. And I actually think that's really interesting because like trees and mushrooms actually have a symbiotic relationship. They work together. The way they do that is the roots, if you will, of the mushroom, the mycelium, will grow around, actually surround the roots of the tree, and they'll provide carbon dioxide to the tree, and the tree will provide nutrients back to the mushrooms. It's kind of interesting because if you want to go find certain, like particular mushrooms, you go look for particular trees because those trees and mushrooms work together. So I thought that was kind of funny and cute, and I wanted to share that with you. And oh yes, so I made a mistake. Shane invited me to speak at this conference, and I was super excited to because I thought it was a conference about Farmville. Like, I love Farmville, and I thought I was the only one, so I was like, ah, sweet. Everybody who loves Farmville, let's talk about Farmville. So I had like a whole speech prepared about the most like effective farming techniques. But then I found out it's at Farmhouse Conference. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess I have to talk about something a little bit different. But since we're having a story time now, I want to tell you my most memorable story of Shane. I'm totally going to embarrass him now and probably ruin the story. So, very important thing. The stories that I'm going to tell you today may or may not be true. Okay? So, one day, Shane would go to dinner with us, and we went to dinner at a Korean restaurant. And Shane is vegan, right? And he ordered this pancake there. They have this vegetable pancake, it's a vegetable pancake. And the guy brought it, and like, you know, we were having dinner, and Shane's like, "What is this?" He hands it to me, and I'm like, "Ah, that's squid." And I'm like, "And it's delicious." And Shane's like, "What the? I ordered a vegetable pancake here. It says vegetable pancake. What's the deal?" And so he's like, he gets the owner of the restaurant. The guy's like Korean guy, and he's like, "Yeah, this is the vegetable pancake." And Shane's like, "Well, it has seafood in it." And he's like, "Yeah, it's a vegetable pancake." And Shane's like, "Well, where does it say that there's seafood on this? It says vegetable pancake." And the guy says, "Oh, it's written right there in Korean." I thought it was a sad ending because he didn't get to have his pancake, but I found the story amusing, so I wanted to share it with you. But continuing on from that, I have three main topics I want to talk about is lying and trust, and I want to talk about superpowers, and the last thing I want to talk about is taking risks. And it may not particularly be in that order, so we'll see. So I grew up in Salt Lake City, and it was kind of strange for me. My childhood was kind of strange because I grew up in a non-Mormon family in Salt Lake City, but I didn't know that it was strange until I moved away from Salt Lake City. But I grew up there, and like the Mormon church would send missionaries to our house frequently, and one of the interesting things is that they'll do anything to like give you the first reading, like anything. And my dad, like, he had to replace our water heater died. We had a 50-gallon water heater, and like we were all at school, you know, nobody was home to help him with this, and the plug, it was the drainage plug was just completely plugged up, so he couldn't drain the water out. And 50 gallons of water is about 400 pounds, plus the weight of this freaking thing. And so he can't move it by himself, but then these missionaries show up at the house like, hey, we want to do this. And he's like, all right, why don't you help me with this water heater? So they helped him move it out, and totally awesome. They gave him a first reading, he offered them a beer, they said no thanks, and that was it. But, so, my friend, I went to high school in Salt Lake City, and my best friend in high school, he would borrow his uncle's car, and by borrow I mean steal it, and would come pick me up, and we would go joyriding. Okay, and I lived in the poor part of Salt Lake City, and right across the street from me lived a Japanese family, and their son had this crew, and they called themselves the Oriental Mafia, and I was a like, I don't know, guest member or whatever, and we would do like gang signs and whatnot, but I wasn't really involved too much. But they would have like these like Fast and Furious car meetup type things, like right across the street from me, right? So, my friend shows up one night to get me, and the way this worked was like I would sneak out of the window of my bedroom, and then we would go do our thing, and he comes by, and I fell asleep. So I was totally asleep, and the mafia was having their car club meeting, and my friend was parked in front of our house, and he like starts honking the horn to wake me up and get me to come out, and like I just totally slept through it. And it turns out what happened was he kept honking the horn, and then these guys thought he was honking at them. And so they're like, oh, he's trying to start shit with us. And he's like, my friend was like, oh, fuck, what am I gonna do? So he like starts driving away, and then they start chasing him. And he doesn't know my neighborhood very well, so he turns down this dead end street. And like he's stopped in this dead end street, and like they block him off, he can't leave, and so like he gets out of the car, and they're like, hey, what's up? Are you trying to start shit with us? And he's like, no, I'm coming to pick up my friend. And they're like, who's your friend? And he's like, Aaron. And they're like, oh, Aaron Patterson? And he's like, yes. And they're like, oh. Okay. And let him go. So that was an interesting story he told me. But when we were out doing these, the times that I did wake up and would go with him, we would talk about lame superpowers. Like if we had superpowers, like what would be a dumb one, right? My favorite one to talk about was having magnetic hair, but not like super magnetic, not like shit would come flying at you or anything, but like store like paper clips and stuff in it, like, and it seems like it'd be fairly useful, but maybe like now that I'm older and a bit more hairy, probably inconvenient. So anyway, I went to high school in Salt Lake City. Started going to college, and then to pay for college, I worked at a website that I gotta think up a fake name for it now. AwesomeCarSite.com is where I worked. I worked at AwesomeCarSite.com. You may have heard of it. I don't know. I really liked working there. It was pretty fun, and I totally forgot where I was going with this. So I continued working there, but I worked there as a programmer. I worked there as a programmer to pay for college to learn to be a programmer. Like that's what I decided I wanted to do. Is I wanted to be a programmer, and it was kind of strange. Like I got this job basically out of high school, and I was doing it to pay for school, and I found out, oh wow, actually I kind of love doing this, and I'm starting to get better at it. And they kept giving me more responsibilities at work, and eventually I was like, well, all right, I don't have time for school anymore. I'm going to school to do the thing that I'm already doing, so eventually I just dropped out and stopped continuing with school. And I don't know, it's kind of weird because like my parents grew up very poor. They grew up in South Dakota as like both of their families were ranchers, and they were very poor people. Their parents did not. My grandparents did not go to college, not finish school. My parents did, and worked themselves out of this situation, moved to cities, and became middle-class people. So going to school was very important in my family. So I felt kind of bad that I had dropped out of school, and I studied programming a lot. I loved it. I became good at it, succeeded in my career, and I attributed that to trying to make my family happy. And I attributed it to that for a long time, but later on I've realized that the reason I actually do it is because I just love it. I found the thing that I want to do. I want to be the best at it, so I study it as hard, like as much as possible. And that was the actual reason I started doing it. So I found a goal through this. Even though I didn't finish school, I found a goal, and that was actually what was really important to me. But while I was working at lying is hilarious. So while I was working at awesomecarsite.com, we had a secretary there, and her son was famous. And I was not very good at celebrities at the time. I'm much better at celebrities now, so I don't remember who he is, but he was very famous. He was like one of people's top 10 most beautiful people. And she came to me and she said, well, you're very smart, and she was Mormon, and her son is Mormon, but she was concerned that her son was having premarital sex, right? Because he's like famous and out, I think here in LA. And she said to me, hey, can you break into his email account and let me know, like tell me, is he doing, so I can read this and check up on him and stuff. And I'm like, the first thing that comes to mind is like, what the fuck? Right? Why are you doing this to your kid? What? And so then I'm like, immediately the second thing that comes to my mind is, I'm gonna fuck with her. So I tell her, well, yeah, I do actually know how to break into people's email accounts, but the thing is, like, I was convicted of felony hacking, and like, I'm not actually even supposed to be working with computers right now, so I'd rather just not do this and keep myself like on the down low here and just continue with my job. And so 30 minutes later, I had somebody come to my desk and be like, are you really a hacker? I heard that you're actually a hacker. Oh yeah. About an hour later, I had the CEO of the company call me into the office. Our company was only like 14 people. He's like, I heard that you are a hacker. And I'm like, dude, no. I told him the story. I'm like, no, I'm just fucking with her. She wanted to break into her son's email account, so I lied to her to get her, like, embarrass her, basically. And so when I was practicing this, I don't understand how I tied this into the next thing, so I'm just going to continue. So as I do a lot of work in open source. I work for the man. I work for AT&T, and I do open source software all day, and I love doing it. I love working with the developer community. But one of the important things I found is when working with customers, even before I was working as a library developer, even working with customers, I found a very important thing to me was honesty with the people I was working with, right? Honesty with my customers, trusting people is very important, because let's say you get somebody who sends a bug report to you, right? Every time I get a bug report, I trust that this person is actually having this problem, And I think this is an important attitude to have when you're doing development on a particular library. And the thing is, they might have something off to the side, something that's not, not related causing the issue, or maybe like it's nothing to do with your library, but or maybe they haven't described the problem very well, but they are actually having a problem, and you need to trust them if they're having this. So what I try to do is I try to educate these people into how to report a better bug, or figure out exactly what is wrong with it, and then educate them so that in the future, well, either A, they're not bugging me anymore about something that's not wrong, or B, even better, they help other people the way that I'm helping them, or C, I actually fix a bug in my code, which is awesome. I also think that it helps build a very good community around the software that you're developing too, because people want to come back and help you out. So, the last thing I want to talk about is taking risks. My timer shut off. I don't know if I'm running ahead. I'm very nervous because I have no slides, so I can't remind myself like what I'm supposed to be talking about. So, awesomecarcompany.com. I was a Perl programmer there. Then from there, I moved to socialnetwork.com in Seattle. I worked at socialnetwork.com, and I have to tell you, I worked for large companies and I've worked for small companies, and I like working for large companies particularly because it's more hilarious. And, like, I think probably I'm just like, I have a sick sense of humor is the problem. Like, when I see like horrible, stupid processes, I'm just like, I can't believe I have to fill out all this paperwork. And I just love it. And also the characters, like the characters of these giant companies will just, they're crazy. So I want to tell you about one of the particular characters I had at socialnetwork.com. So when I started working at socialnetwork.com, I was a pro programmer there, and we hired a guy to be a middle manager. And he was, I don't know, my manager, something above me but below the CTO. Okay? And this guy always had Sun Tzu's Art of War on his desk. And so I already thought he was kind of a douche. And he somehow crafted himself to get his boss fired, who's a CTO, and move himself into the CTO position. And he would go around the office with a shopping cart and say, oh, you don't need to have a desk, you can have a mobile office like me. Literally a shopping cart from a store was pushing it around in our office. And he would go around to each person every day and say, is there anything I can do for you today? And I'm like, let me continue working. And sometime, one time, every person, he would do this, everyone in the IT department, everyone who was underneath him. And one person said, wash my car. And he was like, okay, which one's your car? So, he went and washed her car. And I'm just like, okay, all right, awesome. So, I still don't want him to wash my car because, like, I don't really want to owe anything to the dude who keeps Sun Tzu's Art of War on his desk. So, that's fine, whatever. But he wanted to leave his mark on the company, and the way that he wanted to do that is he wanted to convert us from mod Perl to Java. And this was around 2002 or 2003 when the bubble had burst. And he was like, all right, we're moving to Java. Well, at first he wanted it to be a grassroots thing, and all the developers said, no, this is a bad idea, we shouldn't just go rewrite our website in this, we're doing fine. And eventually it just turned into, you will rewrite it in Java, or you will have to go look for other work. And I'm like, oh, the job market isn't so awesome now. I think I'll learn Java. So I became a Java programmer. And this guy was just so weird. He had, I was on the team, the small team to do our first conversion to Java. And everybody on the small team had motorcycles except me. I had a scooter. And after we got this first cycle done, oh, and it's powder blue. After we got this first cycle done, he's like, all right, the CTO guy's like, I want you guys to ride your motorcycles through the office. And I'm like, I don't think that's a good idea. This doesn't sound like it'll turn out well. And so the other guys are like, all right, fine, we'll do it. So they rode their motorcycles through the office, and I did not participate. And it didn't turn out so well for the office. I mean, broken things and marks on the carpet and whatnot. It was not that awesome. But so all this entire time that I was working with this guy or the CTO, apparently members of our executive team, we had in our office we had a wall of mailboxes where everybody got their mail, right? So everybody in the company had their own little slot where they would put their mail. And there were, I didn't know this while it was happening, but members of the executive team were getting these letters put into their mailboxes, anonymous letters that were ransom-style notes. That had, poor grammar and, some of the, typewriters, some of them were literally the cut out letters and put them on a piece of paper, and they would say things like, you need to fire this guy because he's a Jew or something like this. Crazy shit, right? And they put hidden cameras into somehow they secretly put hidden cameras into where the mailbox to monitor the mailboxes. It turned out it was crazy CTO doing this. They caught him red-handed on camera. He would come into the office early, deliver these letters, and it was all his Machiavellian plan to I honestly have no fucking clue what you're supposed to accomplish here. I am now the bestest guy at socialnetwork.com. I don't understand the motivation, but dude was totally crazy. Immediately got canned. I don't think I have a particular point to this story, except and it's story time, right? So I wanted to share that story. But anyway, I'm working. He gets canned, and move on with my life. We get somebody else new. I'm still, the wake of this terror is that now we're switched to Java by some crazy dude, and we can't just go back, right? It's not like we don't say nobody said, oh hey, crazy guy made this decision. Maybe it wasn't a good decision. Nobody said that. No, we're gonna keep going forward with crazy guys. Okay, all right. So we switched completely to Java. I was a Java developer for many years, and then I started to hate my job a lot. Hated being a Java developer. When I was a mod Perl or Perl developer, all of the awesome stuff that we have with Rails, instantly, reload the page and see your shit live, we had all that. We had it all. And we moved from that to 10-minute compile times and 5-minute server startup times. And I just wanted to shoot myself. And the entire time that I was this Java dev, I'm like, man, Perl 6 is going to come out. Oh, will it be it? Perl 6? We'll be back on that. I won't have to worry about this. I can move on with my life. And I'm like, it's just not coming. Years, just not coming. And finally, one guy at work is like, hey man, you should check out this Ruby thing. You should check out Ruby. So I started learning Ruby. This was pre-Rails. I'm just learning it, as another new scripting language. And I'm like, learning it, I'm like, oh my god, this is what Perl 6 is supposed to be. Like, this is what I've been waiting for. I love it. And then Rails came out, and I started working with that on my spare time, and I'm like, oh my god, things are so easy. And it became incredibly depressing to me because tasks that took me, all day to do at work would take me like 2 minutes in this other thing. And I'm like, seriously? I'm spending all day fussing around with XML configuration files and building this stupid application when I could have done it in like 2 minutes over here. It was insanely depressing. And after a while, one of the guys at work quit and started a startup company, and where I went to work with Shane eventually. And he contacted me and he said, hey, do you want to come work for us? You get to work on Ruby. We're going to do it in Rails, and you can be a Ruby developer. And this was back in, when was this? 2006, yeah. It was not easy to get a Ruby job then. And he's like, the catch is, you have to take a 33% pay cut. And I'm like, 33%, And I'm like, but this is, I was so miserable at my job, I was just like, fuck it, I'll do it. So I quit my job, took a huge risk, huge pay cut, go to this place and start doing something that, working in a language that I love. And I thought what was interesting is that, Matt said, I want to make this language for developer happiness. Like, I do this for developer happiness. But what I thought was weird is that the time when I discovered Ruby is actually what made me insanely depressed. I'm like, you made this for happiness? But I feel like shit, why is that? But anyway, I took this risk, went to this startup company, and became so much happier, and I feel insanely lucky that now I can demand my Java salary again as a Ruby programmer. It makes me feel very good. But life went on with that, and then eventually I got a job at AT&T. I was tired of being a startup guy. Telephone company. I got a job at telephonecompany.com. And I was really tired of working in a startup scene. Like, I worked at a larger socialnetwork.com thing where it was basically like, 9 to 5, I could have a real life outside of work, to something where I'm like spending all day, every day, working. Like, as soon as I wake up, boom, working, until as soon as I go to bed, working. And it just burned me out so much. And one of the things I hated about working at this company is that I am a morning person. And most developers that I know are not morning people, including my boss at this company. So I would get in and be working at 8. I'd be in before 8, working. And I'd be like, all right, I am tired, dying, I need to go home. So 6:30, I'm like, I gotta go. And my boss is like, what the fuck, you've only been here for like a little while. And it's because he showed up to work at like, 10 or 11. I'm like, dude, I've been here all morning, I don't understand. So I got very tired of that and wanted to go back to a larger company with crazy people, although I haven't met any crazy people at this job. And anyway, while at AT&T, I was out one night. Well, I'm working at telephonecompany.com, and I was out one night with my fiance, and we were drinking a lot, and I was like, I really want to be an open source developer. I want to code open source. I want to write code for other developers to use for free. I'm complaining to her about this. And she's like, you know what you should do? You should give a presentation to your boss. And I'm like, that is a great idea. while I'm hammered. So I go home, like, let's go home now. We go home immediately. I like fire up Keynote. I'm like, put together all these slides, and then I like text message my boss. I'm not sure what time it was, maybe like midnight or something. Like, I have to talk to you tomorrow. And that was like Friday night. And he returns a text message to me. He's like, okay. So I get on the chat with it. I'm like, I sleep, and in the morning I'm like, oh, did I do what I think I did? I did. Okay, well, why don't I just follow through with this and see what happens? So I get on instant message with him, and like, I have a presentation to give you. And I can just see in his face, he's like, fuck, he's gonna quit. And I'm like, okay. Here, I give him the presentation, and what I told him was, like, I did all this open source stuff in the community before, and many of the developers there use my software. But I didn't really have time to maintain it anymore, and I have all these things, like, I'd made these things to make our development team more efficient, and I need more time to do this. And I want to be able to make our development team more efficient, so bring the bottom line up, right? I don't know if that's the right phrase. I don't know business things, but anyways, make it so that they're faster, better, or whatever. And I was completely surprised when he just said, "Okay, you want to do this full time?" I'm like, "Yes." He's like, "Okay." Wait. Oh? Really? He's like, yeah, after a month or two, we'll take a month or two to get you transitioned over to this position. And it took a little bit longer than a month or two, but he actually followed through, and I was like, okay, I have this position doing this. So at telephonecompany.com, I've been an open source developer for over a year now, and I think that the big lesson I learned from these things was to take risks, because, I mean, really, to me, like, life's too short to be not striving for the things that we want to do, right? I mean, even if you fail, it doesn't matter. You move on and you just keep trying until you get to that position and do that thing that you want to do. So that's really the thing that I want to leave you with. So take risks. Continue on with your lives. Thank you.
Yeah, where did your handle Tenderlove come from? Aside from the obvious being the mustache.
So I was hanging out with some girlfriends of mine. Probably it was a gathering of women and me, and we were hanging out watching like America's Next Top Model or something, right? And they're like, okay, what's the grossest thing that a guy can say to you? And my friend says, oh, the grossest thing that he can say is, I want to make tender love to you. And I was like, that is hilarious. So I'm like, boom, register tenderlovemaking.com. Next day I sent her an email, check out this website I found. So I guess I got it to troll a friend.
Thank you. That was a great talk.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. I'm new to this whole programming world, and the last speaker spoke about how programming can be very isolated. You seem very extroverted. Do you ever find at times that you're writing code or programming and you have to be isolated, do that work, but still there's parts of you, wanting to go out or be around people?
Actually, my extrovertedness is a lie. I am actually an introvert. I love interacting with people, but the way that I recharge is by being by myself. So I will probably go home and be drained tomorrow. But I work by myself. I work by myself all day. Like I work from home. But like most of my pair programming and interactions happen online. So what we do is we'll pair program online, and I do most of my interactions online. So I mean, I guess I'm not really alone, but like nobody's sitting next to me or anything. I'm not wearing pants. Yes, that is correct. I do my job pantsless.
Any other questions? Yeah, one of the best things about working from home is every day is pants optional. So my favorite story, I guess isn't a story about Tenderlove, but my favorite sort of shared thing with him is every day of the week when we were on projects that we weren't always the happiest about, or working on a feature, but when we were in the trenches was, at least it's Friday.
At least it's Friday. Yes. Depressing humor gets us through the day.
There are certainly some characters at the place. Some fall asleep in mid-sentence. Some pictures of that person exist on the internet. Okay,
That's true.
Tenderlove.
Thank you.